The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
Welcome to Bermuda's Daily Talk Show. It's the Daily Hour.
ChatGPT did become the world's most downloaded non-gaming app.
Literally the job of everyone in government to address the media and the public.
What are your thoughts, audience? What are your thoughts on Zandy Silva as the deputy PLP leader?
A community that can't feed itself is a community that...
What you may not know, though, is that Bermuda, we have a connection to Epstein, too.
Things that people are doing right, the youth are doing right, that is not being advertised enough.
When you see your access to U.S. dollars disappear, that's when you have a problem.
You've got a town in the UK with a similar sized population. This place absolutely outshines it.
It's Friday, the 13th day of February 2026. Welcome to Bermuda's Daily Talk Show. This is the Daily Hour brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, HSBC Bermuda, Medical House Lindos, People's Pharmacy, and big love to Hot 107.5 for ensuring that we can pump through the radio airwaves with these most important community conversations. I'm Jamel Hartman, and we'll have a news break from Teo Dill in a bit. How's everyone feeling today? It's so many of you, it's your favorite day of the week. The final day of the traditional work week. But it's also Friday the 13th. I don't know. Are you all superstitious? I mean, some of you may be superstitious, but happy Friday to you all. Dr. Anthony Richardson says, greetings and happy Friday from ye old London town. All right. Over there in the UK, we appreciate you. We've got Kenton Trott says, good morning, TDH family. Happy Friday and a happy Friday to you, good brother Kenton. Shawnat Bell says, TGIF, and for those of you who don't know the acronym, it means thank God it's Friday. And yes, I say this to you all the time. I love Mondays because I love coming back and engaging with you, but I can appreciate a Friday, man. I really can appreciate a Friday. As you get older, you look out, that final day. You feel, well, at least I do. I feel accomplished, like I got through another week of community conversations with all of you. So thank you all so much. And greetings, everyone. Thanks for making us part of your daily routine. A good one today as we welcome economist and always our professor, Craig Simmons, onto the show. We're going to be discussing the government's upcoming budget for 2026-27. And we asked yesterday as we celebrated 1,300 episodes, who's been your favorite guest? And so many of you said Mr. Simmons. Even through our annual survey, you always say Mr. Simmons. And I'm glad that he trusts this platform and loves to engage with all of you on a regular basis as well. So really looking forward to the conversation and learning and engaging. And I'm going to be upfront on audience. I did not have an opportunity to read the pre-budget speech. So my questions for Mr. Simmons will be pretty layman, all right? And that's my apologies, just dealing with the kidney stones and other things. I just did not have the time. But I've probably done more reading this year than most years at this point. But forgive me for that. However, that just means that for those of you who have read the budget report, you should have some good questions and be ready to engage. The daily play on this Friday is going to be things you should know. Things you should know. All right. We may have asked this question on the show before, but if we did not, I wouldn't have known the answer anyway. If we did, I wouldn't have remembered. All right. Audience, don't forget to subscribe on our website, thedailyhour.com. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. Claire Warner, good morning. Bermuda says good morning to you. Suzanne Ingham says it's a super awesome Sherry Footprint day. It's Sherry Day, and we've got James Burgess. Good morning to you, folks. We're going to have some fun this morning. We are going to have some fun because it is Friday Fun Day. Yeah, it's Friday Fun Day. So we're going to have fun today. I've got a couple of questions for you that have nothing to do with each other. But this is your daily discussion brought to you by our friends at Titan Express and Secure. And audience, I sent out a WhatsApp to many of my contacts yesterday, and I encouraged everyone to vote in the BDC Bermuda's Best Business Awards, right? And I'm going to tell you, I was very biased. I voted for Peoples and Medical House and Titan and Secure, and I'm not telling you who to vote for, but I just told you who I voted for. Hopefully I can be of some inspiration to you. But let's get it started. You know, folks, if this is your thing, it's Valentine's weekend, which means love, I guess, is in the air. Along with dinner reservations, last minute flower runs, and somebody somewhere right now panicking because they forgot. But let's be honest. If there's anywhere built for romance, it's Bermuda, right? We've got pink sand, sunsets that look filtered without a filter. We've got cliffside views that don't need a caption. We've got hidden coves and quiet forts and boat rides at dusk and restaurants where candlelight hits just right. You don't need Paris when you've got Hamilton Harbor, and you don't need Venice when you've got Harrington Sound. But here's the real question. What actually makes something romantic? Is it this big gesture, like the surprise proposal? Is it the 5-course dinner? Or is it the simple stuff? A picnic at maybe Botanical Gardens or the Arboretum, or a long walk on the South Shore, stargazing somewhere quiet, or recreating your first date? Because romance in Bermuda isn't just about money. Well, I hope it isn't. It's about intention. It's about taking advantage of the beauty we sometimes take for granted. It's about slowing down. It's about choosing someone on purpose. So today, I want to ask you, again, it's Friday Fun Day. What's the most romantic thing to do in Bermuda? Where's that spot that never fails? And be honest, do you think Valentine's Day is overrated, or do you secretly love it? Over to you, audience. Question of the morning. What are some of the most romantic things to do in Bermuda, Valentine's or not? Some of the most romantic things to do in Bermuda. And since it's Friday the 13th, I said questions that have nothing to do with each other. Are you superstitious? Are you superstitious? Let us know. Are you superstitious? All right, let's go to the audience. We've got Dr. Anthony Richardson says the simple stuff where you put effort into making the day a romantic one. Okay. So I'm going to go. I'm going to say, right, as far as romance in Bermuda, no matter the time of year, if the weather's not bad, just go up, like, what's it called? 9 beaches, or like the southwestern part of the island, and watch the sun come down. What's it called? A sunset? Yeah, sunset. That's a beautiful romantic thing to do. Go for a quiet walk on one of the South Shore beaches, as mentioned. I'm gonna give you one of my secrets. I haven't done it since I was like a teen. But go up Jobson's Cove and just relax and look at the stars. That's kind of romantic. Doesn't really cost anything. I mean, gas to get there. Private boat ride, right? I don't know if they still have the Boston Whalers. Go get some sushi, for me, some sparkling cider, and take a little boat out. No, something I wouldn't do, but one of the things I've done before is taking a gondola ride down the A1A in Florida. Doing something like that. You can do it in Bermuda, right? Candlelit dinners never fail. Bermuda has some good waterfront opportunities. You can name the restaurant. And you have different levels, whether you want to go casual at Whitehorse or Wahoo, or if you want to go more high end at somewhere like Harborfront. You have options. Stargazing, as I mentioned, Jobson's Cove used to be a spot, but that place where I've never been still, Cooper's Island. They tell me it's beautiful. That's another place where you can just get away and take someone for a little romantic time. Live music, that used to be my thing. I remember Robert Edwards and Jamie used to be around Hamilton Princess back in the day. That used to be a thing. Nice romantic Saturday night out. Yeah. I know you all may not think this is romantic, but maybe taking a stroll through St. George's. Again, that's one of my favorite things to do. And go to the perfumery. Go and make each other's scents different. You can make your partner a cologne. They can make you a perfume, right? Go do something special like that. It's an amazing experience down there. As I mentioned, Botanical Gardens, the Arboretum, maybe Aswood Park. And if you're feeling daring or crazy or loving, proposal spots. What's in Catherine? Gibbs Hill Lighthouse, top of the lighthouse. Is it back open? But here's some thoughtful stuff that really, really can be special and make people think. A handwritten letter. Yeah. Recreating your first date if this is someone you've been with for years. And something as simple as making lunch at home and taking it to them at work. Man, I call me Cupid, not stupid. I think I just gave you all some game today. But what else? What are some of your most romantic? What do you believe are some of the most romantic things to do in Bermuda? Like throughout the year, not just Valentine's. We're talking about because it's Valentine's, but what do you believe are some of the most romantic things to do in Bermuda? And also, since it's Friday the 13th, are you superstitious? All right. Sean Smith says, give your loved one the full home experience. Cook breakfast, lunch, and dinner, including a full body massage. Okay? Just make sure if you do construction or like something hard work and you're planning on giving a massage, like put a lot of lotion on your hands. Soften your hands. Soften your hands. Not all hands feel the same. All right? I'm giving you some more game. James Burgess, what are some of the most romantic things to do in Bermuda? James Burgess says, take your loved one to dinner. Take your loved one to dinner. Yeah. What else, audience? Like, what are some things? One of the things I enjoyed, I'm telling you all my business. Take that special one on a fishing date. Like down flats where it's just beautiful in the evening, right? Take them fishing down flats and catch some fish. It's a bonding thing, right? Because while you're waiting for the fish to hook, you're talking and getting to know one another, or not getting to. If you already know each other, you're just getting to talk and enjoy each other a bit more. But that's something that many people won't consider. What else, audience? What else? I know what it is. You all don't want anyone stealing your ideas. Like, you don't want to say, oh, go this place, and then now it's not a place for privacy anymore because everyone's coming. I'll give you another one. If you are an outdoorsy person, or you and your person are outdoorsy people, Tormore's Jungle. Romantic hike through Tormore's. That can be really cool. Yeah. Sally Kate Horton says fishing, that can be romantic. That can't be romantic. Poor fish. Well, I hope you don't eat fish, Madam Horton. What's it? It's an activity to do together, and it's not something that's fast. Fish are getting smarter. Dr. Anthony Richardson says, send one rose each day for a total of 14 days. And on the 14th day, take your lady to beachside location and share a home-cooked meal cooked by you. Dr. Anthony Richardson came to share game today. I'm actually shocked that, are you telling me Bermuda, which is known for the Moon Gate, Pink Sand Love, the original wedding destination, and you all don't have any ideas or don't want to share some of the most romantic things to do in Bermuda? I am shocked. I am appalled. I cannot believe that you all don't want to share some of the most romantic things to do in Bermuda. This is your daily discussion brought to you by our friends at Titan Express and Secure. I did ask also, as you can see on the screen, are you superstitious? And Suzanne Ingham says not superstitious. We have Sean Smith says, no, I am not superstitious. I was superstitious once. I played on the high school basketball team, and I know some of you are laughing, but I did. All five, I was probably like 5'2" at the time, but I was pretty good. I was pretty good. They couldn't see me, so it was easy to get steals during the game. But anyway, I had these football shorts I would wear under my basketball shorts, and every time I would wear these football shorts underneath my basketball shorts, I would score a three. Right? I mean, I averaged like 0.5 points a game, but that's not the point. But I would score three every time I won, and anytime I didn't wear them, I wouldn't score. So that was probably the only time I was superstitious, when I played on a high school basketball team. But outside of that, I've never really been a superstitious person. Never looked at like Friday the 13th or anything as a if I don't do this, this is going to happen. Well, most of the audience says no, not superstitious. We've got Miss Ellen Kate Horton says, no, I'm not superstitious. James Burgess, sitting at the dock of the bay with Otis Redding. You got to play that while you're fishing, he says. Yeah. Nicole Walker says, Valentine's Day is overrated, not superstitious. Love an early morning swim or in the evening right before sunset. Yeah, not giving away our spots. Oh. I promise we won't show up. We won't show up, Nicole. If you just tell us one of your spots, we won't show up at the same time. This is to help, improve love throughout Bermuda. That's all. We've got Patrice Ackerman says, superstitious about some things, mostly surrounding New Year rituals. Okay, interesting. Would love to hear more about that. Manuela says, hopefully someone is taking advantage of the off-grid RV. That's something that could be romantic, right? That's something that can be romantic. I mean, I'm not a camper per se, but that can definitely be. It's different. It's different. What else, audience? What are some romantic things to do in Bermuda? What are some of the most romantic? If someone came to you and said, "Look, I'm trying to plan a special date for our 5th anniversary," what would you recommend they do in Bermuda? What would you recommend? What is something that comes to mind that you would say, you know what? This makes sense. This would be beautiful for you all. What are your thoughts? What would you say is something that you would put top of list? We've heard this, walks on the beach. We've heard the sunsets. Here's one. Traveling Trotty says a picnic at Ferry Reach. Okay. Picnic at Ferry Reach. Okay. So we've got Botanical Gardens, the Arboretum, Aswood Park, Ferry Reach, Cooper's Island. 9 beaches, is that, or Daniel's Head? What's it called? Yeah, up there. That's a nice spot mentioned earlier. That's not a lot of spots that we named, right? What else, audience? What can we do? Moonlight swimming, says Alan K. Horton. Maybe on a full moon. That could be very romantic. I don't know. I think Bermuda. Which hotel did like the barbecue on the beach? It was one of the hotels in Bermuda does a barbecue on the beach, like something special like that, but only for you two. Like plan something for you, just the two of you, at one of the restaurants. That could be very, very romantic, right? Pontoons is a nice park to go for a nice romantic date, says Manuela. Okay. All right, folks. It's your daily discussion brought to you by Titan Express and Secure. Bungee jumping if in Bermuda, says James Burgess. I'm going to go out and say I'm not quite sure. I would find bungee jumping romantic, but again, Miss Horton doesn't find fishing romantic. I'll say this much. After watching Trevor Collins propose to Hillary Banks on Fresh Prince, I knew from then I was never going bungee jumping with a woman or for a woman. None of that. You all that's just TV, Jamal. Whatever. That was my reality as a child. Alrighty. What else, audience? What are some of the most romantic things to do in Bermuda? We've got Sean Smith. He says, plane ride around the island. That's unique. I like that. Plane ride around the island. We've got Suzanne Ingham says, I think it was South O did South O did the barbecue on the beach. What's South O? We've got Nicole Walker says, the Reefs does barbecue on the beach. Yes, it is the Reefs. I think Cambridge offers private dinners. Yes, it was the Reefs though. Suzanne meant South P. Yeah, it was the Reefs I was talking about. Something that's open now. The Reefs actually did barbecue on the beach. All right, and Cambridge does private. So, since you mentioned it, I'm going to share something with you. By a show of hands in the audience, have you ever been to Cambridge Beaches Hotel? Have you ever been to the resort? Yes or no? I'll tell you why. And this is not to shade any other hotel property. I've never stayed at Cambridge. I've stayed at pretty much every hotel in Bermuda except, what's that one? The Lauren? Not the Lauren, I've stayed there. What's the one that opened on St. George? St. Regis. I haven't stayed there at St. Regis. And I have not stayed at Cambridge. But Cambridge, in my opinion, is the most romantic property in Bermuda. And you may say, really? Folks, they have a private pool suite. Well, they have 4 of them, I believe. Well, I'm not going to put a number on it because then they'll be like, no, we don't have the money. Cambridge is probably the most romantic property in Bermuda. If you're looking for a weekend getaway that's romantic for just 2 of you, ask for one of the pool suites. You have your own private pool in the room. Now, I don't know how much it goes for, but if I had the funds and I wanted to do something very special and romantic at a local resort, and they're not paying me to say this, Cambridge Beaches, I'm telling you, folks. Anyone seen the pool suite? No, I know Mark says he's never been to Cambridge. Dr. Anthony Richardson says yes. No, says Emanuela. Nope, but have heard such good things, says Nicole Walker. Yes to Cambridge, Miss Ellen Kate Horton. Yes, but have not stayed there, Sean Smith. So I tell you, folks, now if the phones are ringing off the hook, that's on you. But those pool suites are absolutely romantic. They are awesome. All right, folks. This is your daily discussion brought to you by Titan Express and Secure. We're going to give some thanks to Titan Express and Secure. Then we'll go to today's news break with Teo Dill. After that, don't forget, we've got the man that you all continue to ask for, Greg Simmons, coming up. We're talking about the upcoming budget. You do not want to miss this. Stick with us.
The Daily Discussion is brought to you by Titan Express and Secure. Titan Express delivers safe, professional, and reliable transportation and tours across the island. From island tours to cultural experiences, they set the standard. And Secure is your go-to for property management, waste management, and residential and commercial services. Visit securebda.com. Professional, punctual, and reliable service is their commitment to you.
People's ACW, located at King Edward VII Memorial Hospital, carries over-the-counter medicines, toys, cards, and even toiletries. Our knowledgeable staff are there whether you're at emergency, visiting family, or a member of BHB staff, to show you our best even when you're feeling your worst. People's ACW, we're here for you.
Take a look at our walkway for construction workers and tradesmen. Durable, stretchable in all the right places, and plenty of options for tools and accessories. Paired with our wide range of tough and comfortable footwear, you can't go wrong. As you can see, Medical House really is a one-stop shop for everybody. We can't wait to see you.
See it all at our new expanded location on Bakery Lane.
Discover Drop It, your go-to grocery delivery. Browse and select from a wide range of groceries, from fresh produce to daily essentials. Our friendly drivers deliver fresh groceries to your door fast, saving you time and hassle. With Drop It, you get fresh groceries delivered fast, so you can focus on what really matters. Drop It, freshness at your doorstep, delivered to your door with Lindo's. Why go anyplace else?
if the age that really matters isn't the one on your ID? You probably know your chronological age, the number of candles on your last birthday cake. But there's another kind of age that may be even more important, your biological age. This reflects how old your body truly is at the cellular level. It is influenced by your genes, your environment, and the choices you make every day. Two people can both be 40 years old on paper, but one may have the body of a healthy 30-year-old, while the other is biologically closer to 50. The difference? Lifestyle choices on nutrition, sleep, stress, exercise, and exposure to toxins. That means you have some control over your biological clock, and that's exactly what makes it so powerful. Because when it comes to aging, it's not just about living longer, it's about living better. Want to know your predicted biological age today? Download the free Carry Genetics app and fill in the lifestyle questionnaire.
Alrighty, welcome back to the big show. Jamel Hartman here. This is the Daily Hour brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, HSBC Bermuda, Medical House Lindos, People's Pharmacy, and big love to Hot 1075 for ensuring we can pump through the radio areas with these most important community conversations. Folks, do not forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. Without further ado, we've got a very special guest, probably the most in-demand person next to Curtis Dickinson, who you all want to engage with on a regular basis. But let's give a warm to the H welcome to our favorite economist and professor, Craig Simmons. I came ready this morning. Cheers to you, sir. How are you?
Well, I'm in day 772 of retirement.
We love that for you. We really do. We really love that for you. And how do you when you wake up during retirement? What do you do? Like, what does a morning look like for you?
First thing is to get, after doing the basic hygiene, you like to go outside and get some sun in my eyes to get those adenosine receptors flushed out. And after sort of staring at the sky for maybe 10 minutes, come back in, have some oatmeal with berries, strawberries, blueberries. And then I have to go to my drug of choice, caffeine.
Get a little coffee in.
Yeah, and that gets me up to sort of start the process of reading, spending a lot of time reading the Financial Times, got my stack of books. Yeah, a lot of reading.
I love that for you. And I do. And I always say, my hope is that everyone gets to live long enough to enjoy the fruits of their labor. We spend so much of our time working and not really enjoying life. So I'm happy. And also in retirement that you continue to make time to engage with all of us because this audience just loves you. But we're going to be talking about the budget 2026-27 today as we head into the budget speech, which will be delivered by the Premier and Minister of Finance on February 20th, I believe. What should Bermudians realistically expect this year, given the current economic climate?
Well, I mean, the politicians will hit you with the good news. No major tax increases. The duty on vehicles is going to be cut. Payroll taxes, if you're in the bottom sort of tier of the income distribution, that's going to be cut. So in some ways, it's a sweetheart budget, but you always need to ask the question. There's not an election coming up. What is up is $600 million from the corporate income tax. And so that's given the finance minister and premier the luxury of, doing that Oprah thing, you get a car and you get a car and you get a car. The Tax Reform Commission came up with a number of recommendations, and the finance minister, in his wisdom, decided to go along with those recommendations. I have issues with it, but I understand the Tax Reform Commission's waterfall concept, because they're trying to appeal to many different constituents. You have to remember one thing about Craig Simmons: he's not running for public office, and so I tend to be single focused on this one thing that is a bee in my bonnet, and that's the $3.2 billion in debt. Now, the Tax Reform Commission does make allowance for that, but their view on the debt is to reduce it in half. In other words, take it from 3.2 billion down to 1.6, sort of in like 10 years' time. And for me, that's too much time. I would like to think that within 5 years, you would be able to reduce the debt in half. For example, we've got a $605 million note, a bond or IOU coming due next year, January of 2027, $605. The government has committed itself to paying off that $605 debt, which means we're going to have to roll over the balance. And then I think 2 years after that, there's a $400 million debt or bond coming due. And the big one is the year after that. It's like 890 billion. So we're talking about close to $2 billion in debt coming due in the next sort of 3 to 4 years. And that's why, for me, corporate income tax, the $600 million, what to do with it. It's really about debt reduction.
Would you say that the debt is the biggest economic pressure facing Bermuda right now that the government must address with this budget?
Yeah, it's not something that's generic to Bermuda. Debt forces you to work harder tomorrow than you do today, because you've already borrowed the money, you've already got commitments to your people, and you've got to work harder to not only honor the commitments you have to people today, but also come up with an additional $128 million in debt service. So that's the cost of the debt that we have right now. And now you say, well, how much is $128 million? Well, in terms of the government's budget, the biggest expense, if you will, is health. That's around $240 million. And then after that, you've got national security, which would be police, the regiment, prisons. That's around 150. After that, you've got education, which is in the ballpark of $125, $130 million. So the interest on the debt is in the region of what we spend on education. And so if you imagine a day when we don't have to spend $128 million or $120 million servicing the debt, we're talking about having enough money to fund a new ministry. But my uneasiness with debt goes beyond that. And our friends to the West, the Americans, they seem to be, well, not seem to be, they are running up an unsustainable debt. I mean, I'm going down a rabbit hole a bit, but there's a nonpartisan organization in the United States called the Congressional Budget Office. It's funded by both, Republicans and Democrats, and they've made it very clear that the trajectory of debt in the United States of America is unsustainable. But yet, you have this thing called the Big Beautiful Bill that's driving U.S. debt to sort of crazy heights. And I wonder if the American comfort with rising and unsustainable debt has blown this away, much like the winter weather that we've been having to endure over the last couple of days. My reason for being uneasy with debt is the uncertainty and the fragility of the global economy. If you think about what's happened over the last 25 years, there was the first, crazy thing that happened in this century would have been the 9/11 disaster. Black swan, unpredictable. Shortly after that, you had the global financial crisis. A gray swan, something that was predicted. Shortly after that, you had the pandemic. And each of those events cost the taxpayer. The global financial crisis, I don't know whether you remember, we had to bail out a bank. Yep. The government offered a $500 million guarantee to Butterfield Bank?
200, I thought. But yeah, you could be right. I thought it was 200.
Oh, what I did was, I corrected for inflation.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you.
Because it was back in 2008.
Right.
Similar thing, so there was a guarantee, but still it's on the books. And then the pandemic, that was another one, a big hit. So for me, when I look at the fragility and the uncertainty within the world, it's always about having dry powder. I'm using a military description. Dry powder, if you got a gun, if you're in the regiment's in body. If your powder gets wet, you can't use it. You can have all this gunpowder, but if it gets wet, you're in trouble. And for me, we need to reload our weapon to fight the next catastrophe. Because of the complexity and the connectedness of the world, there is going to be something else very soon. Here's one for you. Financial crises. The last one was 2008. If you follow what's happening in the global financial system now, with the lowering of capital requirements for banks, so banks don't have to keep as much money in the vault to back the risks they take. There's a move toward using crypto as a security for banks. And these, crypto, as much as I love it, and the stable coins, these are good things, but they haven't been tested. So financial crisis is right around the corner. The craziness that's happening with AI, the amount of money. So for 2026, I think we're looking at spending, the AI industry is looking at spending something like $700 billion on development. And stock markets are sort of saying, well, where's this money going to come from? Because when you look at the books of some of these companies, the sales that they have in any one year doesn't cover what they're going to spend on AI in this particular year.
You know what's crazy about that? Sorry, but I read something late last night, and I wasn't planning on bringing this in, but I'm glad you did. But I read something last night. Someone sent it to me about the Microsoft AI CEO basically saying that AI in the next 18 months will replace lawyers, accountants, whatever. And someone wrote a question. They said, how will AI make the money to remain in existence? Because if you're removing the people who actually would pay into what you're selling, then where does that money come from? And I found that so interesting. And now that you're saying that, what you're saying is like, yeah, like we're not thinking beyond that. We're not thinking like what you just said.
Yeah, and the sort of incestuous relationship between these companies. I mean, the stock market is booming, but again, there's a lot of fragility in the system. And to my way of thinking, given that you have this precarious situation, it would be like an individual hustling, and they don't have secure income. And so you have to be really careful about the debts that you carry. In order to sort of deal with the uncertainty, my strategy would be get those debts down as quickly as possible, notwithstanding the fact that this is all predicated on corporate income tax. Understand this, that as we're having this conversation, The people who are due to pay the corporate income tax are actively figuring out ways to not pay it. There's no one on planet Earth that pays taxes that is not trying to figure out how to not pay the tax. I'm sure your listeners do that when they're flying back and thinking about paying duty on, the overcoat they purchased on the most recent trip. It's normal operating procedure. The concern that I have is that we're expecting this gravy train of $600 million. This is stuff on top of what we're already getting, to flow for the foreseeable future. We haven't received the dollar yet, but we're operating under the assumption that yes, this will carry on indefinitely. And I don't have that level of comfort. The world is too uncertain a place for you to make those assumptions. And so I think the finance minister has got it wrong. I think the tax reform commission got it wrong in believing that the world is so stable, if I could put it that way.
So when you listen to a budget speech, what specific signals or measures tell you whether fiscal leadership is strong and responsible? Well, like what would as we listen next week, what should people be looking for as far as whether the fiscal leadership is strong and responsible?
Yeah. So the messaging is going to be that this is sort of the first budget surplus that the government has had in many, many years. And, sure, we can clap, but the reason for the budget surplus goes back to the additional $600 million. So to put that into context, ordinarily the government collects about $1,200 million in any given year, $1,200 million. When you add $600 million to that, that's a significant increase. You can do the arithmetic. That's like a 33% increase. I mean, can you imagine getting a 33% increase in salary? You would be making all sorts of grand plans for the future. My problem is that, are we sure that this is real? The premier has done his best to convince us that this is real, it's sustainable, but I really don't buy it. And so my thing is, while the sun is shining, you want to make the most of it. So, pay down this gorilla that is on our back, the gorilla being the $3.2 billion worth of debt. Get that off of our books as quickly as possible. But you're not going to hear that in the finance minister's talk. He's going to tell you about what he's able to give you of the additional $600 million. And it's going to sound like music. It reminds me of, is it the person that was in the Trojan Wars heading home, and he put wax in his ears because he didn't want to hear the sirens singing the songs, because if he hears the songs from the sirens are like Beyonce and all these fancy singers. Listening to those songs, he'd be tempted to head toward the sweet music that's being played. But of course, once you get there, your ship gets wrecked and you get eaten up by these beautiful babes. That's the fear that I had, that we'll get distracted from the important work that needs to be done. And one of the most important pieces of work that has to be done is addressing this issue of inequality. The working class people, blue collar people, their salaries have been declining since the turn of the century. For the last 25 years, there's been this steady decline. And it's not something that's only happening in Bermuda. That's what we need to understand, that Bermuda is not another world. What we see happening here, it's happening in the States. Blue collar folks suffering. In Bermuda, If you work in international business, the median salary in international business is north of $170,000 a year, the median, the middle one. Whereas if you're looking at the hospitality sector, we're talking about $40,000. And that gap, the wedge between white collar people and blue collar people has been getting steadily wider. I did some sort of back of the envelope calculation when it comes to inequality, comparing, I'm getting a little technical, what's called the median income to the per capita income. Per capita is when you take the GDP and you divide it by the number of people. So nowadays in Bermuda, our GDP, gross domestic product, value of all goods and services, is in the region of sort of $9 billion, $9,000 million. And if you slice that 65,000 different ways, you're going to get a number like $150,000. Now, most people are not making $150,000, but the per capita GDP for Bermuda is about $150,000, which puts us in the sort of the top tier of countries on planet Earth. So my inequality index has me comparing the median, which is around $70,000, to the per capita, and that's about 50. So that tells me that the median is about 50% of the average. Now, if you go back to 2000, that ratio was about 76%, about 3/4. So the difference between the median, what most Bermudians would see, to the average back in 2000 was about 75%. But that gap is getting wider and wider and wider. The average is being driven up by international business, because those folks are making a heck of a lot of money. They're doing extremely well. But the folks at the bottom, not so well, which would help explain why there's a parish of Bermudians in the United Kingdom. There's this exodus. And what are the kinds of things, because this is something that I think the government needs to get its head wrapped around it. It's to do with inequality and social mobility. So the government will say that with respect to payroll taxes, people at the bottom are not paying very much tax. And, I have to applaud the government for doing that. But you've got to go further than that. Tax credits. I think people at the very bottom, I'm talking folks in the hospitality sector with their $40,000 per year, they need a bump. And one way to do that would be to sort of have a working person's or working family's tax credit. You have that in the United Kingdom, which is probably why people leave Bermuda to go to the United Kingdom. If you got a low-paying job, you will get tax credits. You will get like a bump in your salary. Your take-home salary will increase, but only if you're working. Similar thing in the United States. They have this thing called the Earned Income Tax Credit. If you are at sort of poverty line, the government will bump up your salary to some meaningful level so that you can afford to pay electricity, which is sort of the most expensive on planet Earth in Bermuda. So those are sort of things that I would hope that the government would do, but I don't believe that the finance minister has an appetite. He hasn't signaled that kind of support for working class people. And so I would expect the flow of working class people out of Bermuda to the United Kingdom, to the Caribbean, to continue to the point where we're going to have maybe 2 parishes of people living in the United Kingdom. Now that's a short-term measure, but there are other long-term things that can be done. I mean, one of the things that the government needs to be given credit for this reform of education, and we're spending quite a bit of money on education reform. But we need to go further with that as well, because many of our public school students are entering public school unprepared for, they don't have the basic skills to survive in public school. The United Kingdom introduced this thing called Sure Start, S-U-R-E, START. I would encourage your readers to do some research on Sure Start in the United Kingdom. It was a program that was started in sort of the late 90s, 1999. And this is the nuts and bolts of it. It was targeted at children from 0 to 5 in poor neighborhoods. So the United Kingdom government identified poor areas, and it would be very easy for us. We all know what the deprived areas in Bermuda are, and they would set up community centers in these areas that would provide support to parents, giving them ideas for talking to their kids, educating their kids. In fact, providing the support that many parents don't have or don't even know that they don't have. Yeah, because this is an intergenerational problem that we're facing. And it's interesting because one of my students way back in the day, Zarai, oh boy, he's from St. George's. Yeah, Zarai. He was the one that sort of hit me to this concept many, many years ago of Bermuda College students going into the homes of low socioeconomic households and have Bermuda College students and college students in general read to children. Because that's something that our kids in certain areas aren't getting. Middle-class kids, I mean, middle-class parents, they read to their kids, they talk to their kids like they're baby Einsteins. They stretch their kids' imaginations so that when they get to school, they're ready to go. But unfortunately, in sort of, low socioeconomic status households, that's not happening. And so our kids are entering school at a disadvantage. My goal is to give teachers a gift, give them the gift of well-prepared students who can, in fact, read when they're 5. And so that teachers aren't having to sort of deal with the social issues. But so this Sure Start program, the reason why I think it's unpopular is that the benefits are long-term. If you were to start it today, you would not see the benefits for some time. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is that in the United Kingdom, they've done the research on the people who benefited from the program back in 1999 and 2000. So now these kids are teenagers, they're getting on with life. And what they've done, they've followed these kids from these deprived areas. And they've looked at their educational outcomes. They've looked at their income outcomes. And it's like, wow, holy smokes. Kids coming from deprived areas, coming out with IGCSE passes well above what was expected. Incomes that are significantly greater than those people who never got exposure to the program. So these are programs that the government needs to get involved in. But again, the political economic cycle doesn't incentivize politicians to get into these kinds of things because the payback period is so long.
Right. And you make a great point. Talking to someone early this morning before the show, and they're saying Bermuda needs a master plan that literally focuses way beyond the current politicians' lifespans, right? But of course, and I said this the other day, I think when A. Crocker was on, when people ask why I wouldn't get into politics, and I always say, because, politics is not people first or cause first, it's always power first. And what you're saying is that because these plans involve long-term, they don't reflect what's going to happen between now and the next election. And I'm so glad you said that study, it takes years. Like someone in the comments, and I'll go to the comments now, right here, Charles H. Jefferson II, he says, does Mr. Simmons think Bermuda would benefit from a long-term 20-year plan, which is kind of what you were just speaking on, as it relates to aspects like land use, zoning, transportation, infrastructure, and community facilities? Like, nothing seems long-term. Everything seems political when it comes to the budgets. And I think that's what you're addressing this morning. How do we get around that when the politicians are the ones that, in charge of the budget?
And 20 years is the minimum in terms of thinking, long-term. That is the absolute minimum. Transportation. One of the things in the budget is that it's going to decrease the duty for your bikes and your cars. Um, one of the criticisms I have of the budget is that it's not coherent. So I don't know if you, I travel by bus, and it's not unusual for me in my bus travels to encounter accidents. I don't know if the rest of Bermuda realizes, but accidents are occurring on our roads on the regular. And it's directly related to the number of vehicles, the speed with which vehicles are moving. And so there's no coherent transportation strategy. It's like, okay, well, you get a bike and you get a car. Let's just give you these trinkets without thinking in terms of, well, how are we going to move people around Bermuda, especially if we've recognized that the population is too small and we need to get more people into the island. Can you imagine more people, more vehicles, more accidents? I just don't understand the logic behind it. And then another one is to do with the duty on electricity. Okay, fine. So the electricity in Bermuda is very expensive, the most expensive. So we need a plan to bring down the cost of electricity, but we need to be careful about promising people a lowering in the cost of electricity. I think a wiser and more long-term approach would be to say, well, let's wean ourselves off of fossil fuels to the extent that that's possible. Let's go toward solar, and let's move toward, if possible, if we could go with wind and other renewable sources to reduce our carbon footprint. But the moment you reduce the duty on fossil fuels going into Belco, you're making it less attractive for entrepreneurs to push solar. And the other problem with solar is that middle-class people are, in fact, making that move. If you drive around Bermuda, you can recognize a middle and upper middle-class neighborhood by the number of panels on the roof. The reason why I'm bringing that up is working-class people are now left to carry the load that is associated with the capital that Belco. So Belco is designed to carry a larger population than we have right now. And so as people leave the grid, as middle-class people and upper middle-class people leave the grid, they're leaving behind working-class people who now have to cover the capital costs of supplying that electricity. So this move toward solar is in fact going to drive up the cost of the people that remain on the grid. It's called a death spiral. The death spiral can be dealt with because you have to figure out, all right, so if middle-class people are leaving the grid and getting the benefits of leaving the grid and having control over their energy, how can we help working-class people? And so, you come up with plans to install solar in working-class neighborhoods. But you need to have a coherent policy. This idea that we're going to, in the short term, we're going to reduce the fuel to bring down the price of electricity is, again, not coherent. It doesn't take into consideration the long run. Can we not, the integrated resource plan that the government has sort of agreed to, it's a long-term plan, is to move Bermuda away from fossil fuels. But this reduction in duty on fuel for Belco is going in the opposite direction. It's also the case that Belco will get tax breaks on payroll tax for its employers. Again, people in the renewable sector must be thinking, well, I thought we were going in a particular direction. I thought we were going away from fossil fuels, but now the government is incentivizing people to not. Again, it's short term. And until I suppose we can get people to express their distaste for this short-term thinking, it will continue,
Mm. I want to go
unfortunately.
to the audience. Shamari Sky has a question. He's asking, how much damage can using the CIT for anything other than debt do to our credit rating? Meaning, if we look like we're starting to rely on the volatile CIT, wouldn't creditors get concerned and possibly lower our rating, even though we're getting much more revenue?
The credit agencies tend not to look that deep, and so for the credit agencies, the only thing they're concerned about is us reducing our debt. And they're not so concerned about how fast it's reduced. So they're into this thing called debt management. As long as you're heading in a particular direction, they're okay with that. And I get it. That's the way they make their money. They don't live in Bermuda. They're not having to deal with the decisions that Bermudians are faced with. They are paid to sort of take a view from 35,000 feet. We, the people of Bermuda, need to look at the details and make suggestions to our government as to how we think things should go, and not leave it to, because in many ways, we're running a one-party state in Bermuda. The government has free will. I mean, we elected them and we gave them this super majority, and the opposition right now is in disarray, and it's a shame because our Westminster model demands a strong opposition, and I can't wait for the OBA to get its act together so that they can hold the government's feet to the fire. It's not about me agreeing with the policies of the OBA, because I don't think the OBA would agree with most of my views. It's more about the system that we've decided to live under, the Westminster system, and it requires a strong opposition. Yeah. So.
Sean Smith, while we're on this, he says, with countries slowly shifting away from the US dollar and the SWIFT system signals a weakening economic empire in terms of the USA, what would it mean for Bermuda's future?
So this shift away, so you've got, because of what's happening in the United States today, countries are actively exploring ways around the US dollar. I mean, and specifically, we're talking about Brazil, South Africa, China, India. Yeah, of course, they're going to do things. But there's also a countervailing force in these things called stable coins. So when you think about a company like Visa, last year, I think Visa facilitated something like $17 trillion worth of transactions. Stablecoins last year facilitated about $12 trillion worth of transactions. So this stablecoin, and I maybe need to explain what a stablecoin is a financial technology that is making it less expensive for people dealing in dollars to move money around the world. It's almost like the internet of financial services. So if you can imagine a world before the internet, I don't know how many people can imagine that, and then take it from before, post, or pre-internet to post-internet, had a profound impact on how you got information. Stable coins are promising to be a similar thing, this sort of democratizing of the financial services system. But the stable coin only works if it's tied to some currency, and the currency that's most stable coins are connected to is the US dollar. The European Central Bank is doing a similar thing, developing a digital currency, and I'm guessing that they will connect their stable coins to the euro, the European Central Bank's currency. And so there's all these countervailing forces going on. And this speaks to the uncertainty that we need to move quickly, going back to the payment of our debt, get this thing under control as fast as possible. Bermuda, our dollar is tied 1-to-1. It's not such a problem because the world desperately needs the US dollar as a reserve currency. Not for the basic reason is that a considerable amount of the world's wealth, so if you think about the world's wealth as being in the region of $450 trillion, most of that wealth, a significant portion of that wealth, is denominated in US dollars. US treasuries form a sort of foundation for supporting wealth. And so it goes beyond the US dollar as being, a currency of choice. It's foundational for purchasing oil. Just about all oil transactions are denominated in US dollars. Like I say, if you have wealth, millions of dollars or billions of dollars, if you're an insurance company and you need collateral, it tends to be denominated in terms of treasuries. And so it's going to be very, very difficult for the world to move away. That's not to say that the world isn't trying, but Bermuda, yes, should consider maybe we need to sort of support some of our currency with gold or some other asset. My sense is that perhaps the Bermuda Monetary Authority are looking at these kinds of things.
I got another question from the audience. Traveling Trotty's asking, what impact with the government or will the government pension change have on Bermuda overall and with the number of potential government employees leaving?
Okay, so there's two parts to that question. Let's deal with the first part. The changes into when you say government pension, I'm assuming you're talking about the superannuation. The changes in the rules are likely to cause a serious exodus of older people from the civil service. And these older people are going to take with them human capital, significant knowledge. Arguably, the folks that are up for retirement are the ones that have the lion's share of what makes the civil service tick. And if you've got this significant loss, by some estimates, we're talking about up to 900 people in the civil service leaving, it's going to have a profound impact on the provision of service coming out of the government. So that's the first part. This change, it seems to be penny wise, but pound foolish, because you're probably going to have to hire these folks back by this time next year. And of course, they're going to, if I've left the government, I'm going back with a sweetheart deal. So that concerns me. I think the second part of the question had to do with savings in general. And Bermuda is in a unique position when it comes to savings. And I would encourage your listeners to seek out the GDP, gross domestic product releases, the annual ones. The most recent one, I believe, is for 2024. And you're going to have to sort of do some digging. It's toward the end of the GDP release document that came out late last year. And it speaks to the savings rate in Bermuda. So I mentioned that the gross domestic product, the level of economic activity, the indicator for economic activity in Bermuda suggests that we're at $9 billion. The amount of savings that happens in Bermuda, on average, it's about 42%. So about 42 cents on a dollar, on average, is saved in Bermuda. Now, most people on this call are thinking Greg Simmons has lost his mind. But the word that I want you to focus on is on average. Okay. So in any given year, Bermuda saves north of $3 billion. That's $3,000 million. Remember, our national debt is what, $3.2 billion. In theory, in any given year, our savings is more than the national debt of Bermuda. So if you think about the last 10 years and the Bermuda economy saving north of $3 billion, that's $30 billion in savings in just one decade. So Bermuda is a great place to save. Now, having said that, I use the profane word average. Whenever you're dealing with economic data, averages aren't very useful. I talked about the average income in Bermuda being around $150,000, whereas the median income is half of that. So, what's going on? Well, it's got a lot to do with how the income is distributed. There's this thing called, I probably talked about this before, when you're looking at economic data. 80% of the wealth or 80% of the income or 80% of the land is controlled by 20% of the population. Yeah. And so, okay, so then you run that again. You say 80% of 80% of the wealth or the income is controlled by 20% and 20% of 20% of the population. So that's 80% of 80% is 64% is controlled by 20% of 20% of the population, which is 4%. 64% of the wealth or income is controlled by 4% of the population. Let's do that again. 80% of 80% of 80%, I believe, is about 52%. So 52% of the income or wealth of a country is controlled by 20% of 20% of 20% of the population. If you do your arithmetic, that's about 0.8. That's less than 1%. Let's do an approximation. 1% of the population controls 50% of the wealth. I recently saw an article coming out of the Financial Times that said that 50% of the real estate in the United Kingdom is controlled by 1% of the population. 50% of the land in the United Kingdom is owned by 1% of the population. If you go to the wealth reports that are put out by Credit Suisse or the Union Bank, USB, Union Bank of Switzerland, they produce wealth reports on an annual basis. I said that about $450 trillion, $450 trillion to $500 trillion is global wealth. If you read that report closely, you will see that half of that wealth is controlled by 1% of the global population. That just seems to be a statistical regularity when it comes to wealth, income, ownership of land. What's causing it? I can't say. But it speaks to the fact that, okay, so Bermuda is saving a lot of money, over $3 billion, but it's not evenly distributed. Which takes me back to my earlier point about inequality and tax credits for people at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder, a Sure Start program to get our kids from low socioeconomic status neighborhoods moving up the social ladder, dealing with, in a broad sense, the issue of inequality, which is not something that can be solved overnight. So on average, there's huge savings in Bermuda, huge savings.
Restless Native 781 says here, the rich keep getting richer while the poor stay poor. I heard that saying 40 years ago and it ain't changed. But I want to ask you, and I don't want to get into the politics of it, but it is a necessary question. Should we, for most people, I think these are conversations that happen in private where people are very surprised and shocked that Since 1998, we've had a Labour Party as government all but 5 years. And to see that, the rich getting richer, the white collar, doing their thing while the blue collar struggles, like everything you've explained were reasons as to why in 1998 there was this political change in Bermuda. And, I don't want to make this, about David Byrd and the PLP, but I remember saying to a PLP minister back in 2010 that, no, I think you're a great politician, but based on understanding each political party, you would be best suited for the UBP. And they got very offended at me by saying that. I share that because when I see David Byrd as premier, I don't get the labor feel. I don't get the blue collar feel from him. I don't get that this person understands that while the economy may be doing well and IB is doing well, the folks at the bottom, as you said, the middle class is disappearing and that gap's getting wider. And when I think of that, you think of India, right? But India's got what? 1 billion people, right? So Bermuda doesn't have that luxury. So without getting political, how do we address this? How do we get to a space where the leader understands that as a Labor Party, blue collar workers should not be struggling or to find a way under.
So there are two things, Jamal.
Mhm.
First thing, the rich getting richer, and this has been a perennial problem. I mean, I'm guessing many of your listeners are probably Christians, and they follow this thing called the Bible. And in the Old Testament, the Jews had a thing called Jubilee, and the Jubilee would come, and my memory on the timing of the Jubilee. But it works out to be something like every 49 years or 50 years. It's sort of 7 years of Sabbath or something, some rule that the Jews came up with. And the Jubilee was a time of debt forgiveness. Now, I can remember my time when I was at West End School, the Lord's Prayer. One sort of line is, forgive us our debts. It's the Jews understood that there is a natural tendency in a market system toward inequality, and that you need to reset, you need to push the reset button. In our type of world, since 1980, since the sort of coming of the Margaret Thatchers and the Ronald Reagans, there has been this obsession with economic growth and disconnecting the civil consequences of economic power. So we have to understand international business is great for generating wealth, but it's largely separated from civic responsibility. We don't think about civic responsibility. I mean, having said that, yesterday I had my students over at Hiscox, 15 of them sitting around the table, getting a lesson in these things called insurance-linked securities. So we're sitting in Hiscox. We had this guy, Winston Prabhas, come in, give up his time, give us lunch, and my students are in the front row in terms of getting a ticket to join the reinsurance industry of Bermuda. And I have to tip my hat to Hiscox. I have to tip my hat to Price Forbes. I have to tip my hat to Chubb. These are institutions, insurance institutions, that my students have the honor and the pleasure of visiting and getting this front row seat. But I'm conflicted because it's only 14, 15 of my students. But having said that, on Monday evenings, we get as many as 300 people on a call that give people a window into international business for free. So again, I'm conflicted. So the civic responsibility, international business is doing its thing to sort of try and get Bermudians in. But at the same time, I think our politicians are largely passengers, spectators in this ride. Bermuda's economy is not being driven by the vision of a political party. Economics is driving the country, not the politics. The politics, like I say, you think about the tail wagging the dog. That's what we have in Bermuda. Economics has taken this unfortunate position of deciding what's good, what's bad, and what's ugly. And that is something that's bigger than Bermuda. As I said, it goes back to the days of Margaret Thatcher, and that pushback that you saw in the 1980s from Reagan and Thatcher was a pushback to something that happened in the latter part of the 19th century. You had this group called the Fabian Socialists, and sort of, 1890s, early 20th century, and they had some crazy radical ideas that included the following: universal health care, unions, universal education. And these people were hounded by the status quo, by what were then called the robber barons, the Carnegies, the J. Paul Gettys and people. These were radical types. But of course, those three things that I talked about, the freedom to organize a union, universal health care, universal education, that's all normal stuff for civilized society. But 100 years ago, it was considered radical. What we've seen is a cycle or the pendulum swinging one way, and now it's swinging another. And now in 2025, I see pushback against what started in 1980. This idea that the economy is number one, is primary, and civic virtue and people are secondary.
Yeah.
But we won't see the results of it because it takes decades. I mean, the pushback that came against the Fabian Socialists took decades to happen. If you think about the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, there were high income taxes in the United States. I think the highest band in the United States in the 60s and 70s was like 70%. Today in the United States, the highest band is significantly lower, half of that. And so you have these ebbs and flows. And it's unfortunate that the PLP got into the ebb, or got on the pendulum, and it was swinging away from the importance of human beings and more towards the importance of economy. And that whatever the economy demanded, you had to give the economy. So if it was the deregulation of the financial services sector, or whether it was taking apart unions, which is what happened in the United Kingdom under Margaret Thatcher, you had this deregulation of the economy, and that deregulation led to inequality. Now, I think young people are starting to question the moral sort of fiber of our economy. And they're thinking, well, we've got all this stuff. Our economies are very good at producing things, but they're horrible at distributing it. So we can make all these wonderful things, vacations to Banff, shopping in Paris. But, you've got 5,000 Bermudians that don't have access to healthcare. You think, well, how is that possible in a country where the per capita income is about $150,000? Like, help that make sense to me. And if you tell me that it's not possible today in Bermuda, well, when will it ever be possible for us to have healthcare for everyone, where we have an educated population that is able to take its rightful place in international business, and tourism seems to have fallen off the radar. Like, tourism is something that's not important. But tourism is the employer of blue collar workers.
Yeah, I saw something that tourism accounted for 4.5% of our economy in 2024.
But employs a significant, international business now employs 5,000, but tourism equally, it's up in the 4,000 or 5,000, but it's these people, the people that work in the industry, they just don't count.
Yeah, yeah. I got two more questions. I'll put them in one. Nikki Fagan over there on LinkedIn. She says, "Is Bermuda's debt currently owned by any other country, or has it ever been?" And then Anika De Shields is asking a different question: do you think an income tax regime would be beneficial to Bermuda?
Okay. So to the first question, our debt is all in US dollars. So it's owed to the rest of the world. Yeah, which creates a problem. I mean, the Japanese have huge debt, but most of the Japanese debt is owed to themselves. It's denominated in yen. Our debt is all denominated in US dollars. Now, having said that, there's a good chance that your pension fund, if you are a public worker, the superannuation or the contributory pension fund, those monies, or if you have a pension at one of the insurance companies, that those insurance companies probably went to some fund, some investment bank, and indirectly owes or owns Bermuda government debt. But I mean, really and truly, it's all denominated in U.S. dollars, and so that creates a problem for us. Yeah, and the second part of the question, I can't remember. Sorry.
Yeah, the second part, tax regime with
income tax.
Yeah, income tax. Yeah.
Well, Bermuda is an interesting place. So up until recently, the concept of income tax was not to be discussed in Bermuda. But now we sort of have it. We have CIT, you understand what that stands for, right? Corporate income tax. You have income tax in Bermuda. What the rub in all of this is that we really don't mind income tax as long as we don't have to pay it, which again speaks to sort of the lack of moral fiber that we people have. As long as someone else is paying, we're cool with that. And really, that's the reason why we don't have income tax. It's that I don't think we really understand how or the benefits of having an income tax system in Bermuda. We love the status quo, and there isn't the premier will pander to people who want income tax. He will say, yes, I believe in income tax, and so on and so forth, but he's made no moves in that direction. So we now have an infrastructure in place. We've got this corporate income tax agency. It's a very short leap from taxing these foreign companies, these international companies, to creating a regime where you're taxing Bermuda companies. And my sense is that Bermuda companies, corporations, are probably a little nervous now because the genie is out of the bottle. It's not like we don't like corporate income tax or we don't like income tax. We just don't like paying it ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it won't be long, I feel, before we have a full-fledged income tax structure in Bermuda. We just, for the longest time, we felt it wasn't Bermudian. It was un-Bermudian to talk in those terms, which I find common.
Before you head out, if you could offer one piece of advice directly to the Minister of Finance and Premier David Burt before he delivers his budget speech, what would it be?
Coherence and long-term vision. So get away from the Oprah Winfrey mindset of you get a car and you get a car, and basically dispensing favors to the people of Bermuda to make them feel good, when in actual fact working class people in Bermuda are not going to feel much better, if any better, as a result of this budget, because it's not tackling the real issues of affordability in Bermuda. That will require a very different mindset. It would require a civic mindset, putting the people first and not economy. And speaking as someone who spent a little bit of time thinking about economics, economics has largely lost its way by concentrating on the half that we like to talk about, and that is the production of goods and services. We don't really care how you make those goods and services, and we don't care how you distribute the goods and services. And it's got a lot to do with the lack of a sort of moral compass. So our economic system, call it capitalism or whatever you want, has lost its way. It just doesn't have any morality behind it. And what I see happening among young people, they are questioning the lack of moral fiber in the economic system. So they are willing to talk openly about things like the maldistribution of income and wealth. They're now willing to talk about reparations. I see that the Bermuda National Trust next week is hosting a forum on reparations. And I would encourage your listeners to, there's the Guardian, the English Guardian, or what was first called the Manchester Guardian. It's a liberal newspaper in the United Kingdom. They have created a series of podcasts. It's about like a 5-part series on reparations. And it is mind-blowing because the Manchester Guardian discovered that one of its founders was intimately involved in the slave trade. And they decided to lift the hood. And what they found under the hood was shocking to the people that worked at the Guardian and the shareholders of the Guardian. Again, young people having some sort of moral fiber to lift up the hood and say, wow, this looks ugly. We need to address it. We cannot sweep it under the carpet, because that's what we've done in Bermuda. We've swept under the carpet the needs of working class people. Unions don't have the power that they used to have. And we think, well, that's a good thing because the market can determine the future. No, markets are a social construct. It's something that comes out of your head. And markets are controlled by the people who have power. And if you think of a dollar as a vote, in politics, everybody gets a vote. You go to the polls. There's equality. Well, if a dollar is an economic vote, economies aren't democracies. They are plutocracies. The rich have significantly more power. If 1% of the population has 50% of the votes, that's far from democratic. You should not be surprised that you end up with an economy that's not operating in your best interest. If you are working class, if you're wealthy, you're laughing all the way to the bank. And so there needs to be this recalibration. We need vision, and that's what's lacking. Rather than just going with the tide, what Bermuda and what sort of the capitalist world lacks is a vision for the future. So, and it requires coherence. We need something that makes sense to people and get away from the short-sighted aspects of fiscal policy, of government policy, and think long-term. And you're not going to get what you want quickly because we didn't get here quickly. It's taken us quite some time. We've had 25 years plus of this government. And even before this government, you were still on a particular trajectory. And so to bend that trajectory will take serious effort from the population and the patience of the population. But I don't know that our politicians are hearing that message. I'm hoping, I place my hope in the sort of testicular fortitude of young people, because I think they get it. They're not willing to sort of just go along with the game, because the game is not working for working class people, the majority.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think I echo many in the audience, Polly Rich, as usual. So much information to absorb. Thank you, Mr. Simmons. Appreciate you, Tanika Eves. Great dialogue. Thanks, Mr. Simmons. We appreciate it. This you've given us a lot of food for thought, and I'm sure in the coming weeks and months, we'll have many more discussions. Not only after the budget speech is delivered, but as it's debated, there'll be some things. We'll have a response from the opposition. You've given us a lot to think about, a lot to discuss among ourselves, and we look forward to having further conversations with you. Cheers to you and have a wonderful weekend, Mr. Simmons. We appreciate you and we love and thank you for having and making the time for us even during retirement. Have a wonderful day.
All the best.
All right, Mr. Craig Simmons, folks. I agree, Dr. Chapman. Thanks for the education and information on this vital topic, Craig. I have a better and broader understanding of how the economy of Bermuda works. Restless Native says, bless up, Brother Craig Simmons. When you speak, we listen intently. Thanks, Jamal, for making this happen, Restless Native. And we've got Dwayne Santucci says, thank you, Mr. Simmons and Jamal. I can't wait till he's back after the budget is released. Yes, we'll be working on that. Audience, do us that favor. If you're streaming with us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, X, or Instagram, help us beat the algorithm to ensure that everyone you know has access to this community conversation. So give us a like, love, follow, share this link with your friends, family, colleagues, WhatsApp, text, however you engage, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. Take the link and share it. The information that Mr. Simmons discusses with us, honestly, I am grateful. This is a man who is retired. He doesn't have to wake up to have these conversations with us. So make sure you do your part in sharing them. We're going to take our final break. When we come back, we haven't done a giveaway probably all year. We're going to do a hashtag giveaway because you all have been an awesome audience. We're going to do that after the Daily Play. I want to see how many of you get this question right. Stick with us. We'll be back in 3 minutes, 28 seconds.
Dreaming of expanding your business? With BDC's Loan Guarantee Program, we support your ambitions. Get up to 75% guarantee on bank or credit union loans up to $300,000. Just your vision and our support. Apply today and unlock new business opportunities. BDC, Bermuda business starts here.
Looking for the best care for your pets? Novazoc Feed and Supply has everything you need, from top quality foods to toys and supplies. We've got it all. Join our frequent buyer program and earn rewards every time you shop. Plus, we've been awarded the Clever Customer Initiative program for helping you save more. And don't forget, we open an hour early on Saturdays so you can get a head start on your pet care. Visit us today or shop online for easy pickup or delivery. Your pets will thank you.
For over 70 years, Bermuda Pest Control has been protecting homes and businesses island-wide. We offer a full suite of services, including rodent control, termite fumigation, and general insect control and maintenance. Our team of experts will quickly and efficiently eliminate any pest problem you may have. With Bermuda Pest Control, you can enjoy a pest-free home in no time. We're committed to providing fast, reliable, and solution-driven services for our customers. It's what we've been doing since 1952. Call Bermuda Pest Control today and say goodbye to pests for good.
Every space has a message, whether it's a store, a government office, or a doctor's waiting room. With Store Tunes Radio, transform your environment with customized music and professional messaging that keeps people informed, engaged, and at ease. Easy to use, built for organizations of every kind. Powered by Bermuda Communications Group. Store Tunes Radio, the soundtrack to better customer experiences. Visit StoreTunesRadio.com to learn more.
The Office of Consumer Affairs protects residents by promoting fairness, safety, and transparency in the marketplace across the island. We investigate complaints, manage recalls, educate the public, and enforce consumer protection laws to ensure fair treatment for all. Our team supports consumers by resolving disputes, providing guidance, and helping residents understand their rights and responsibilities. We work with businesses to encourage compliance, ethical practices, and trust, helping create a stable and competitive economy. Through education, enforcement, and outreach, Consumer Affairs helps keep Bermuda's marketplace safe, informed, and accountable.
Alrighty, welcome back to the Big Show. Thanks again to Craig Simmons, our friend, economist, and our forever professor, stopping by for such an important community conversation. And again, I encourage you all to share these conversations with your friends, your family, your colleagues. These are the conversations that every Bermudian needs to be a part of. They need to know what's going on. They need to have a say and remain engaged. This is not about politics. This is about life. It's about our economic well-being. All right. Thanks again to the BAC group of companies, HSBC, Bermuda, Medical House Lenders, People's Pharmacy for ensuring we can do this with you on a regular basis. Folks, it is time for the Daily Play brought to you by Bermuda Trivia, now available at stores throughout Bermuda. Follow Bermuda Trivia on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, and TikTok to find out why it's Bermuda's favorite trivia game. All right, audience, are you ready? It's things you should know. How many bones are in the average human body? All right, Rondell Richardson at the buzzer. At the buzzer. Does that count, audience? Does that count? Does that count? Audience, you gotta let us know. 206. Yeah, 206. Rondell Richardson got it. WKD Lama got it. Yeah. Stacey Ann Brown, you got it. You got it. We always knew you were gonna get it, Stacey Ann Brown. 206, yeah. Yeah, 206. All righty. Folks, let's do a giveaway while I wrap it up. So hashtag the Daily Hour. You can hashtag the Daily Hour. We'll give away a $25 gift voucher today. All right, $25 gift voucher today. So just hashtag the Daily Hour while I wrap it up. But I want to say this. I'll start with the discussion this morning about romantic things to do in Bermuda. I think when it comes to showing love and speaking about Bermuda, we sometimes find it hard to do. But Bermuda is really, government politics aside, it's one of the most beautiful places you will ever get to live and experience. It's an island that until you leave for a long time, you don't truly sometimes appreciate. And my hope is that whatever you choose to do, whether you celebrate Valentine's or if you just love to do romantic things, is that you're able to find things that are unique to you, enjoy them, and love them with people who you love to be around. As far as the conversation with Mr. Simmons, I tell you all, I'm grateful. I am grateful to everyone who comes on this show. But the time that he makes to come down and educate and engage, we can't thank him enough. We really can't. And I hope that you will really do take advantage of the opportunities, because one day Mr. Simmons might just say, you know what, I'm tired. I'm no longer able to wake up and do this. I really, really hope that we're listening. You know, today is World Radio Day. Believe it or not, radio isn't about music, about DJs. Radio is about community, information, education, engagement, connection. We have to understand the role that we all play in ensuring that local radio is more than just popping our heads, and more so taking things into our heads. So I'm grateful for Mr. Simmons, and I really, truly hope that regardless of how you plan on spending your days or weekends, whether it's in the bar, restaurant, drinking your stuff, smoking your stuff, in your church, reading your Bible, that we all understand that our economy impacts every last person who lives within the shores of Bermuda. All right, let's do the giveaway. What we got? All right, only 9 people have gone through so far. So let's see. I know more than 9 people have hit it because I can see on my end. Well, 10 now. Okay, so let's give a couple more. Maybe I'll do daily inspiration. Let me get a quote for you for daily inspiration. Oh, I like this. Here's your daily inspiration for the day, and this is from The Journey Within, the first book of my series, and it says, "It's okay to take an unpopular position. History has shown that popularity doesn't equate to right." And unfortunately, with social media and what's trendy, we tend to see people doing what's popular and trendy, not what's right. All right, let's hit this thing so you can get out and enjoy your weekend. Drum roll, please. Who's it gonna be? Who's it gonna be? KJ, congratulations. KJ is a winner. He won in December as well. KJ, send us an email. You can send it to engage@thedailyhour.com or jamal@bermudacommunications.com. We'll get you your $25 gift voucher. You'll just have to tell us whether you want it with Medical House, Lindo's, People's Pharmacy, Secure, Titan, the AC Group. Just tell us who you want it with and we'll get it for you. Congratulations to KJ, folks. We appreciate you all. Thank you, every last one of you, for rocking with us again. If you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. Thanks again to our partners, the BAC Group of Companies, HSBC Bermuda Medical House, Lindo's, People's Pharmacy, and big love to Hot 1075 for ensuring that we can pump through the radio areas with these most important community conversations. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you on Tuesday. There was no live show on Monday. I'm Jamal Hartman. Please do make it a safe and a great weekend. We are is out. Peace.